The steady beep of machines echoed in the white, sterile hospital room. The scent of antiseptic and fresh linen hung thick in the air. Sunlight spilled through the wide window, but it couldn't chase away the heavy, aching silence that blanketed the room. In the middle of it all lay Andrew Cole, one of America's youngest tech millionaires. He looked small against the large hospital bed, his body still, his face pale and peaceful. To the nurses, to the doctors, to the world outside, Andrew was just another coma patient, a tragic figure who might never open his eyes again. But Andrew wasn't sleeping. He wasn't in a coma. He was awake. Completely awake. And pretending. Why? Because something terrible had happened. And Andrew needed time to figure out who he could trust. Time to uncover the truth before it was too late. So he laid there, day after day, listening. Waiting. Watching. And on this quiet afternoon, when the sun was beginning to dip low in the sky, Andrew's world shifted forever. The door creaked open. Soft, hesitant footsteps crossed the room. Andrew heard the familiar shuffle of Nurse Emily Parker, the sweet, soft-spoken nurse assigned to care for him. He recognized the way she moved, the gentle rustle of her scrubs, the way she always paused for a second at his bedside, as if making sure he was truly comfortable. But today, something was different. Emily's breathing was shaky. Her hands fidgeted with the clipboard she always carried. She pulled the visitor chair close and sat down, the metal legs screeching lightly against the floor. "Andrew," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know if you can hear me, but I have to tell you something. I can't keep it in anymore." Andrew fought the instinct to react. He kept his breathing slow and steady, eyes shut, muscles slack, just as he had practiced. Inside, though, his heart raced. Emily's hand brushed gently against his, a light touch, hesitant, caring. "You don't deserve this," she said softly. "You deserve to know the truth." Andrew's mind sharpened like a blade. "It wasn't an accident," Emily continued, her voice cracking with emotion. "The night you fell, someone wanted you dead." Andrew's stomach twisted violently. He had suspected it. The fall from his penthouse balcony had been too sudden, too strange. He remembered arguing with someone, but the memory was blurry, broken. And now, hearing it confirmed, it felt like being plunged into ice. "It was Lauren," Emily said, her words barely a whisper. "Your fiancée. She pushed you." Andrew's whole body wanted to jolt upright, to scream, to demand answers. Lauren. The woman he had trusted. The woman he had planned to marry. It was like a knife straight through his chest. Emily wiped her eyes quickly. "I heard her talking to someone on the phone afterward," she said. "She said she never loved you. That it was always about the money. When you started talking about a prenup, she panicked. She said if she couldn't have the life she wanted with you, she'd rather have it without you." Andrew's mind reeled. The memories of Lauren, her kisses, her promises, her lies, all twisted into something dark and ugly. And here he was, trapped in this bed, letting everyone believe he was helpless. Emily leaned closer, her hand squeezing his gently. "I was scared, Andrew. She has powerful friends. They threatened me not to talk. But I can't stay silent anymore. You deserve to know. You deserve someone who actually loves you for who you are, not for what you have." The emotion in her voice was real. Raw. Andrew felt something strange stirring in his chest, something warm, something human, despite the cold betrayal burning inside him. He stayed perfectly still as Emily leaned down, pressing a soft, trembling kiss against his cheek. "If you ever wake up," she whispered, "I'll be here for you. I promise." She stood up quickly, brushing at her face, and left the room without looking back. The door clicked softly shut behind her. And for a long, long moment, Andrew just lay there, staring at the darkness behind his closed lids. Lauren had tried to kill him. Emily had tried to save him. And now he had a choice to make. Wake up quietly, or rise up and take back his life. But before he could even begin to plan, the door creaked open again. The scent of expensive perfume hit him first, thick, heavy, choking. And then the sharp click of stilettos against the tile. Lauren. Andrew heard her pause by the door, as if checking if anyone else was in the room. Then, soft footsteps crossing toward him. He kept his body limp, his breathing slow. Something metallic scraped against the nightstand. Andrew's heart nearly stopped. He heard the cold whisper of a blade sliding from a leather sheath. A knife. Lauren stood by his bedside, breathing heavily. "I warned you, Andrew," she muttered under her breath, her voice venomous. "You were supposed to stay dead. But now I have to finish it." Andrew's mind raced. He couldn't stay still anymore. He had to move. He had to act, now. His fingers twitched slightly under the sheet. His muscles tensed. Every second counted. Because if he didn't act fast, he might not live to open his eyes again. The blade in Lauren's hand caught a glint of sunlight, flashing silver in the dim room. She stood over Andrew, her shadow falling across his still body like a dark cloud. Her breathing was quick and uneven. Her perfectly manicured hand trembled slightly, but her grip on the knife was firm. "I should have finished this the first time," she muttered under her breath. "But you just had to survive, didn't you?" Andrew fought to keep his breathing slow, his face expressionless. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to move. He couldn't wait any longer. If he stayed still one more second, he might never get another chance. As Lauren raised the knife, aiming for his heart, Andrew's eyes snapped open. Lauren froze. Her mouth dropped open in shock. She stumbled back a step, the knife lowering slightly. "You," she gasped. "You're awake." Andrew didn't hesitate. He moved faster than she could react. In one swift motion, he grabbed her wrist, the one holding the knife, and twisted hard. Lauren yelped in pain as the blade clattered to the floor. Andrew shoved her backward, sending her crashing into the chair by the bedside. She scrambled up, her face wild with panic. "You're not supposed to be awake," she screamed. "You're not supposed to be awake." The door burst open. Emily rushed in, her face pale with shock. And right behind her, 2 hospital security guards stormed into the room. Lauren tried to bolt for the door, but one of the guards tackled her easily, pinning her to the ground. She screamed and kicked, but it was useless. Andrew slumped back against the pillows, his body trembling from the effort, his heart racing like a freight train. Emily rushed to his side, grabbing his hand tightly. "It's okay, Andrew. You're safe now. You're safe." He looked up at her, his eyes burning with emotion. "Thank you," he whispered hoarsely. "I heard everything, Emily. Everything you said. I know you were trying to protect me." Tears filled Emily's eyes, but she smiled, a real, beautiful smile that lit up her whole face. Meanwhile, Lauren was still fighting against the guards, screaming curses and threats. The hospital administrator, several doctors, and more security rushed in moments later, stunned by the chaos unfolding in one of their private VIP suites. Andrew squeezed Emily's hand tighter. "Call the police," he said, his voice stronger now, filled with authority. "She's going to jail. And I'm pressing every charge possible." The administrator nodded quickly, pulling out his phone to call 911. The guards hauled Lauren to her feet, cuffing her tightly. She glared at Andrew with pure hatred in her eyes. "You could have had everything, Andrew," she spat. "I loved you. I deserved that life." Andrew stared at her coldly. "You loved my money, Lauren. Not me. You tried to kill me for it. Lauren screamed as they dragged her from the room. The moment she was gone, Andrew slumped back again, exhaustion crashing over him like a tidal wave. But he was smiling, weakly, but truly smiling, because he had survived. And more importantly, he had finally seen the truth. Emily gently brushed a strand of hair from his forehead. Rest now, she whispered. You're safe. I promise. Andrew let his eyes flutter closed, his hand still wrapped tightly around Emily's. Hours later. The sun had dipped low in the sky, painting the hospital in hues of pink and gold. Andrew awoke to find Emily still by his side, gently reading from a worn paperback novel. He shifted slightly, and her eyes snapped up, relief flooding her face. Hey there, fighter, she said softly. He smiled weakly. How long was I really out? He asked. Emily hesitated. A few days. But, they were planning to move you to a private care facility. Lauren was pushing for it. Andrew's blood ran cold. She was planning to finish me off there, wasn't she? Somewhere no one would question what happened. Emily nodded sadly. Most likely. That's why I had to tell you the truth. Even if you couldn't hear me, I had to try. Andrew looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who had risked everything. For him. Not for his money. Not for fame. But because it was right. His throat tightened. You saved my life, Emily, he said. And I'm going to make sure you're never forgotten for it. Emily blushed, looking down shyly. Before either of them could say another word, a sharp knock sounded at the door. A detective stepped in, a badge glinting on his belt. Mr. Cole, he said, nodding. I'm Detective Harris. I'd like to take your full statement. From what I've heard, this is going to be a very interesting case. Andrew squeezed Emily's hand once more. Let's finish this, he said firmly. Because Andrew Cole was no longer a silent victim lying in a hospital bed. He was awake. He was alive. And he was ready to fight for the life, and love, he deserved. But just as Andrew was about to tell everything he knew, a nurse rushed into the room, her face pale with fear. Detective, Mr. Cole, you need to see this, she cried, holding up a tablet. There's been another attack. Someone else close to Andrew was hurt tonight. Andrew's blood ran cold. The danger wasn't over. Someone else was coming after him. The hospital room, moments ago filled with a quiet sense of safety, now buzzed with urgent fear. Andrew's heart slammed against his ribs as he stared at the nurse clutching the tablet. Her hands shook so badly, the device rattled. Detective Harris stepped forward and took the tablet from her, scanning the screen quickly. His jaw tightened. Mr. Cole, he said gravely. You need to see this. He turned the screen toward Andrew and Emily. There, in shaky footage from a hospital security camera, they saw it. A man in dark clothes, a hoodie pulled over his head, shoving his way into another hospital room just down the hall. Inside that room, Lucas Morgan. Andrew's childhood best friend. His business partner. The man who had stood by him through everything, or so Andrew had believed. The footage showed Lucas struggling as the hooded figure attacked him, knocking over machines, smashing a tray of instruments, before slipping something into Lucas's foreline. A nurse rushed in moments later, screaming for help. The video cut off. Andrew's mouth went dry. Lucas, he croaked, barely believing what he saw. Emily clutched his hand tightly. Detective Harris nodded grimly. He's in critical condition now. We're rushing him to surgery. It looks like someone wanted him silenced too. Andrew's mind raced. Why Lucas? Why attack him? Was Lucas involved, or was he just another pawn in this sick game? Before he could speak, Harris added. There's more, Mr. Cole. Hospital records show Lucas checked himself in 2 nights ago. He claimed he had chest pains, but after tonight, we think he was hiding. Maybe trying to get away from whoever is pulling the strings. Andrew sat back heavily against the pillows, his mind spinning. If Lucas had been hiding, if he had known something, then the betrayal ran deeper than he ever imagined. Emily leaned closer. "Andrew," she said softly. "You said yourself, you had an argument the night you fell. Was Lucas there? Did you fight with him?" Andrew squeezed his eyes shut, forcing his battered memory to rewind. He could see flashes, yelling, shoving, but it was blurry, disjointed. One thing came sharply back. Lucas and Lauren. Arguing. Whispering. Then smiling. Bile rose in Andrew's throat. They were working together, he whispered hoarsely. Lauren and Lucas. They planned it together. Emily's hand tightened around his. Detective Harris's face darkened. "If that's true, Mr. Cole, this isn't just attempted murder. This is conspiracy. Premeditated. Serious time." Andrew nodded grimly. He wasn't just going to survive. He was going to take them all down. But even as he made that promise to himself, something nagged at the edges of his mind. A memory, faint but persistent. Something about that night. Something he was missing. He needed to remember. He needed to know everything. Meanwhile, across town. In a dark, abandoned warehouse, another figure paced nervously. A phone buzzed on the table. The man snatched it up. "What do you mean he woke up?" he barked into the receiver. A cold voice answered. "I told you we should have finished him off immediately. Now it's a problem. A big one." The man swore under his breath. "What about the nurse? She knows too much." The voice on the other end laughed. "Then fix it. Before it's too late." The call ended. The man smashed the phone onto the ground, shattering it. He yanked a black duffel bag from the floor. Inside was a gun. "Time to clean up," he muttered. And he wasn't heading for Andrew. He was heading for Emily. Back at the hospital. Andrew was deep in thought, piecing together fragments of memories. Emily sat beside him, reading over some hospital discharge forms Detective Harris had brought. Suddenly, Emily's phone buzzed on the side table. She reached for it, and froze. Unknown number. The text message blinked onto the screen. "Leave the hospital now. Or you and Andrew will regret it." Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. Her hands trembled as she showed the screen to Andrew and Harris. Harris swore under his breath. "They know you're helping him, Emily. And they're coming after you next." Andrew gritted his teeth. He wasn't going to let anyone hurt her. Not after everything she had done. "We need a plan," he said urgently. "Fast." But before they could act, a loud bang echoed down the hallway. Shouts. Screams. Running footsteps. The hospital security radios crackled. Code red. Unauthorized armed entry. Repeat, armed intruder in the building. Andrew's blood turned cold. They were out of time. The attack had already begun. Someone had come to finish what Lauren couldn't. And this time, they weren't planning to leave anyone alive. The hospital lights flickered overhead as chaos broke loose. Security guards shouted into radios. Patients screamed. Doctors rushed to lock down the emergency exits. Andrew Cole gripped the bed rails tightly, forcing his weakened body to sit up straight. Emily stood at his side, her face pale but determined, while Detective Harris barked orders at the hospital security team. "We have to move him now," Harris said, pulling a Glock from under his jacket. "They'll head here first." Andrew swung his legs off the bed, the world tilting dizzyingly around him. He hadn't walked in days. His muscles ached. But there was no time to wait. "Help me up," he grunted. Emily rushed to his side, wrapping his arm over her shoulders. "Careful, Andrew," she whispered. "You're still healing." "Better hurt than dead," he rasped. Detective Harris led the way out of the room, moving fast but carefully down a side corridor, away from the chaos erupting in the main halls. Behind them, heavy footsteps echoed. The attackers were inside now, sweeping the hospital room by room. Andrew's pulse thundered in his ears. Every second felt like a lifetime. At the far end of the hallway, a freight elevator sat unused, hidden behind a fire door. Harris jabbed the button repeatedly. The seconds ticked by. Beep. 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 Come on, come on. Finally, the elevator dinged open. Just as a figure in a black hoodie rounded the corner behind them. "There," the man shouted, raising a weapon. Harris fired first. A deafening bang echoed down the corridor. The bullet slammed into the wall, missing the attacker by inches. The man ducked behind a pillar, returning fire. Andrew and Emily stumbled into the elevator. Harris dove in after them, slamming the "closed door" button. Bullets ricocheted off the metal frame as the doors finally slid shut. The elevator hummed downward, vibrating with tension. Andrew leaned against the wall, panting hard. "Who are these people?" he managed. Harris checked his weapon, his jaw tight. "Hired guns. Professionals. Somebody really doesn't want you alive, Andrew. This isn't just about Lauren anymore. This goes deeper." Andrew's mind whirled. He thought Lauren was the mastermind. Now he wasn't so sure. Emily wiped a trickle of blood from Andrew's forehead where he had scraped it during the scuffle. "We're going to get you out of here," she said fiercely. "I'm not losing you now." The elevator dinged again. Basement level. The doors slid open onto a dim, quiet underground loading dock, normally used for hospital deliveries. It was empty now. Too empty. Detective Harris stepped out first, gun raised. "Stay behind me." Andrew limped forward, leaning heavily on Emily. They were halfway to the exit door when another man appeared. Not running, not shouting, just calmly standing there, blocking their way. It was Mr. Carlton, Andrew's family lawyer. A man Andrew had trusted for years. Carlton smiled coldly, holding a pistol loosely in one hand. "Going somewhere, Andrew?" he drawled. Andrew froze. "Carlton," he gasped. "Why? Why are you doing this?" Carlton shrugged. "Your fortune, kid. You were supposed to die nice and quiet. We would have split everything after your tragic accident." Andrew's heart shattered all over again. Another betrayal. Another person he had trusted. "You betrayed my family," Andrew said, his voice shaking with fury. "You betrayed me." Carlton smirked. "Don't take it personally. It's just business." He raised the gun. Time slowed. Andrew shoved Emily behind him. Harris lunged forward, raising his own weapon. 2 shots rang out almost at the same time. Bang! Bang! Carlton stumbled backward, clutching his chest, his gun clattering to the ground. He collapsed onto the concrete, motionless. Harris lowered his smoking gun. "He won't hurt you anymore, Andrew," he said grimly. Emily clung to Andrew, both of them shaking. The sound of approaching sirens filled the air outside. Backup was coming. Finally. Andrew sank onto a stack of crates, his body trembling with exhaustion and pain. Emily sat beside him, holding his hand tightly. "It's over," she whispered. "You're safe." Andrew squeezed her hand. "It's not over yet," he said quietly. "But it will be." Thanks to you. Emily smiled through her tears. You're strong, Andrew. You're going to rebuild everything they tried to destroy. And you won't be alone. I'll be right here. Every step of the way. Andrew turned to her, his heart pounding in a different way now, not with fear, but with something warm and real. He leaned forward slowly. Emily met him halfway. Their kiss was soft at first, hesitant. Then stronger, filled with everything words couldn't say. In that stolen moment, surrounded by sirens and flashing lights, they found something worth fighting for. Something more powerful than greed or betrayal. They found each other. But as they pulled apart, Harris's radio crackled sharply. All units, be advised. We have reason to believe a second team is still at large. Threat not fully neutralized. Repeat, threat not fully neutralized. Andrew's heart sank. The nightmare wasn't quite over yet. Someone even more dangerous was still out there. Someone who wanted to finish what Lauren and Carlton had started. And they wouldn't stop until Andrew was silenced forever. Unless he struck first. The flashing blue and red lights painted the hospital walls with streaks of color. Paramedics, officers, and agents flooded the underground dock, securing the scene. But deep in Andrew's chest, a gnawing feeling remained. It wasn't over. The radio crackled again. Be advised, second threat confirmed. Highly dangerous. Believed armed and targeting the coal estate. Andrew's heart tightened. My home, he said grimly. They're heading to my home. Emily gripped his hand tighter. Detective Harris nodded sharply. Let's move. I'll call for backup to meet us there. But we can't wait. If they want to erase you, Andrew, that's where they'll hit next. Andrew climbed to his feet, every muscle in his body aching, but his spirit burning stronger than ever. He wasn't going to hide anymore. This time, he would fight. 20 minutes later, Coal Estate. The mansion loomed ahead, its tall iron gates wide open, a clear warning that something was very, very wrong. Harris pulled the SUV to a sharp stop behind the security house, killed the engine, and handed Andrew a backup weapon. You remember how to shoot? Harris asked. Andrew gave a dry chuckle. Better than I remember how to walk. He checked the clip, his hand steady. Emily stayed low behind them, a determined look on her face. They slipped through the trees lining the driveway, keeping to the shadows. Inside the house, faint light spilled from the massive windows. Figures moved inside, shadows against the golden walls. Andrew recognized one of them immediately. Victor Lang. The head of Andrew's old private security team. A man Andrew had trusted for years. And now Victor was leading a team of mercenaries right through Andrew's house, searching for hidden safes, confidential files, anything they could steal. Andrew's blood boiled. Victor was supposed to protect me, he whispered. He was part of it from the start. Harris nodded grimly. And tonight, we end it. Together, they crept closer. Suddenly, Victor's voice rang out from inside. Spread out. Find the codes. If Andrew's still alive, it's our job to erase that mistake tonight. Andrew tightened his grip on the pistol. Harris gave a short nod. On my signal. The moment came like a lightning strike. Harris kicked open the back door. FBI. Drop your weapons, he shouted. Gunfire erupted instantly. The house exploded into chaos. Andrew dove behind the grand staircase, returning fire when one of the attackers charged. Emily stayed hidden, clutching a phone, relaying real-time information to backup units racing toward the estate. Victor cursed loudly from the living room, grabbing a hostage. Mrs. Reynolds, the longtime housekeeper, her hands tied. Back off. Or I kill her. Victor bellowed. Andrew's heart twisted. Mrs. Reynolds had been like family to him. He couldn't risk her life. But he couldn't let Victor escape either. Victor dragged her toward the door, using her as a shield. Andrew crept silently through the side hallway, circling around behind them. He caught Victor off guard. "Let her go, Victor," Andrew commanded, stepping into view, gun raised. Victor sneered. "Or what, Andrew? You gonna shoot me? You don't have the guts." Andrew's hand didn't waver. "Try me. You betrayed everything we built. You're no better than Lauren or Carlton." Victor laughed, but it was desperate now. "All I ever wanted was my share. You made billions while we bled for you. I deserved more." Andrew's voice was ice. "You deserved exactly what you earned. And tonight, you earned prison." In a flash, Victor shoved Mrs. Reynolds forward and lunged for Andrew. But Andrew was ready. One clean shot. Victor crumpled to the ground, alive but wounded, groaning in pain. Harris and the backup team swarmed in seconds later, cuffing the remaining attackers. Mrs. Reynolds collapsed into Andrew's arms, sobbing. "Thank you, sir. Thank you." Andrew hugged her tightly, feeling the last of the weight lift from his chest. It was over. Finally, truly over. 2 weeks later. The sun set gently over Havenwood Ranch, Andrew's new home, a peaceful estate far from the noise and betrayal of the city. Andrew sat on the porch, a cup of coffee in hand, watching the horses graze in the meadow below. Emily joined him, slipping her hand into his. "You okay?" she asked softly. Andrew nodded. "Better than okay. I'm alive. I'm free. And I'm with you. That's all that matters." Emily smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. The trials had ended swiftly. Lauren, Carlton, and Victor had all been sentenced to long years behind bars. Justice had been served. But for Andrew, the real victory wasn't in court. It was right here. A life built on truth, love, and second chances. He looked down at Emily's hand in his, at the tiny diamond ring now sparkling on her finger. "You saved me, Emily," he said quietly. "Not just my life. You saved my heart. My future. My soul." Tears filled her eyes. "And you gave me mine back, Andrew. We saved each other." As the stars blinked to life overhead, they sat together, two souls who had survived the worst and found something stronger. Love. Loyalty. Home. Andrew Cole was no longer just a millionaire. He was a man who had beaten the darkness. And this time, he would never let go of the light. If you like this story, comment, share and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.